The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with quiet conversation. Representatives from 47 different worlds sat in their floating chairs, each one designed for their specific needs. Some needed thick atmosphere to breathe. Others required special light filters for their sensitive eyes. The hall itself was a marvel of technology, keeping everyone comfortable despite their different biology. HFY floated near the center podium, her crystalline body catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. As the council's head xenobiologist, she had seen many strange things in her long career. But today's report was different. Today's report made no sense at all. She activated the holographic display with a thought. A three-dimensional image appeared above the podium, showing a small blue and green planet rotating slowly in space. The assembled representatives leaned forward in their seats. New worlds always brought excitement, especially if they might hold life. "Honored council members," HFY began, her voice chiming like crystal bells, "I present to you stellar designation 347b, third planet. The local inhabitants call it Earth or Terra. Our deep space sensors detected this world 60 rotations ago." A murmur ran through the hall. 60 rotations was not very long in galactic terms. Most worlds took hundreds of rotations to fully survey before first contact protocols could begin. The planet sits in what we classify as a habitable zone around its star, HFY continued. However, detailed scans reveal conditions that are troubling. She gestured, and the hologram zoomed in closer. Now the assembled aliens could see swirling white clouds, vast blue oceans, and brown and green landmasses. It looked peaceful enough from space. "The gravitational force on this world is approximately 10 times stronger than Council standard safety limits," HFY announced. Several representatives gasped. "The atmospheric pressure is similarly extreme." But that is not the worst of it. The image changed to show readings and charts filled with red warning symbols. Ambassador Quilton of the Floating Cities raised one of his tentacles. His voice bubbled through his breathing apparatus. "Are you telling us this world exceeds our safety protocols? By how much?" HFY's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly. "The atmospheric composition includes 21% oxygen. The ocean water contains dissolved sodium chloride. The planet experiences regular seismic activity, violent weather patterns, and radiation bombardment from its star that would be lethal to most council species within hours of exposure." The hall erupted in shocked whispers. Ambassador Rexta of the underground colonies clicked her mandibles nervously. Surely no intelligent life could exist in such conditions. This must be a dead world. "That is what we thought initially," HFY replied. "However, our long-range biological scanners detected not just life, but complex, organized activity across the entire planetary surface." She changed the display again. Now it showed heat signatures moving in patterns across the continents. Cities glowed like jewels in the darkness. Lights traced the paths of what could only be transportation networks. The evidence was undeniable. This death world was inhabited. "Impossible," wheezed Senator Yuldak through his breathing tubes. His pale skin had turned even whiter at the revelation. "Our species evolved on worlds with controlled atmospheres and careful environmental management. How could any intelligent species develop naturally in such hostile conditions?" HFY dimmed her internal light further, a sign of confusion among her people. "That is not all, honored Senator. Our scans detect large-scale manipulation of the planetary environment. These beings appear to have built structures that reach into the upper atmosphere. They have carved channels to redirect water flow. They have cleared vast areas of natural vegetation and replaced it with organized food production systems." The display showed images of human cities, their lights twinkling in the darkness. Massive bridges spanned dangerous valleys. Tunnels bored through mountain ranges. From space, the signs of civilization were everywhere, even in the most hostile environments. "They live everywhere," HFY continued, her voice filled with wonder. "In frozen regions where the temperature drops far below any council species survival threshold. in desert areas where the heat and radiation would kill most known life forms in minutes, even on small landmasses surrounded by the corrosive saltwater oceans. Ambassador Cleason of the Hive Worlds buzzed his wings in agitation. Have we confirmed these are actually intelligent beings? Perhaps we are seeing some kind of natural phenomenon that mimics the signs of civilization? HFY activated another display. This one showed electromagnetic signals radiating out from the planet in all directions. The patterns were complex, organized, and clearly artificial. These radio transmissions have been continuous for approximately 100 local years. The mathematical progression and signal complexity indicate advanced technological development. But they cannot have space travel, insisted Ambassador Quilton. No species develops interstellar capability while still bound to a death world. It is impossible. Our deep scans suggest otherwise, HFY replied quietly. We have detected what appear to be primitive spacecraft in orbit around their world. Small, crude vessels that somehow function despite being built from materials that should not survive in space. The hall fell silent. Every representative understood the implications. A species that could build working spacecraft while living on a world that would kill most galactic citizens was unprecedented. It challenged everything the Council thought they knew about how civilization developed. Dr. Vexenol of the Academic Consortium spoke up, his multiple eyes blinking in sequence. What is our classification for this species? Have we established their threat level? HFY's form flickered uncertainly. That is the problem, honored doctor. We have no classification that fits. Our models assume intelligent species develop on worlds similar to our own, carefully balanced environments with moderate conditions. This species appears to have evolved intelligence specifically because their world is so hostile. Recommend immediate quarantine protocols, said Ambassador Rexter sharply. Until we understand how they survive such conditions, they represent an unknown variable. But what if they attempt to leave their world? Asked Senator Yoldek. If they can survive in conditions that would kill us, what does that mean for potential contact? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. No one wanted to voice the obvious concern. A species that considered a death world home might find the rest of the galaxy surprisingly easy to conquer. HFY dimmed her lights to barely a glow. I recommend we dispatch a reconnaissance fleet immediately. We need more information before we can make any decisions about these humans. The word humans sounded strange in the council chamber. It was harsh, alien, unlike the flowing names of civilized species. But somehow it fit. A name as tough and uncompromising as the world that created them. Motion approved, announced the council speaker, his voice carrying the weight of authority. Prepare a stealth reconnaissance mission. We will observe these humans from a safe distance and gather more data. As the session ended and the representatives began to disperse, worried conversations filled the hall. None of them could imagine. What kind of beings would choose to live on such a world? More troubling still, none of them could imagine what those beings might be capable of if they ever decided to leave home. The reconnaissance fleet would launch within 10 rotations. What they found would change the Galactic Council forever. Captain Morden adjusted his environmental suit for the third time in as many minutes. The reconnaissance fleet had been traveling toward the human world for 8 rotations, and his nerves were starting to show. As commander of the exploration vessel Peaceful Observer, he was responsible for the first close-range study of these mysterious Death World inhabitants. Status report, he called to his science officer. Lieutenant Zaroff. The young officer's feathers rustled with excitement. We are approaching the outer edge of their system, Captain. All stealth systems are functioning normally. The humans should not be able to detect our presence. Morden nodded, though he felt uneasy. The mission briefing had been unlike anything. In his 40 years of service, usually first contact involved primitive species who barely understood fire. These humans supposedly had spacecraft and complex technology, yet lived on a world that would kill most galactic citizens in hours. Begin passive scans, he ordered. I want to know everything about this world before we get too close. The view screen. filled with data as their sensors reached out toward the blue and green planet. Almost immediately, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. "Captain!" Zareth's voice was high with panic. "The readings from the planet's surface. They make no sense." Morden moved to look at her display. The numbers made his head spin. "These temperature readings cannot be correct. Show me the polar regions." The screen shifted to show the northern ice cap of Earth. Even there, in what should be the coldest part of the planet, the temperature readings were far above what his species could survive. Worse, their sensors detected active settlements even in these frozen wastes. How do they live in such conditions? Whispered Engineer Kiklo from his position at the environmental controls. His scaled hide had turned pale green with fear. "Sir," called Communications Officer Yelena, "I am detecting massive electromagnetic activity from the planet. Thousands of artificial signals, all broadcasting simultaneously. Are they trying to contact us?" Morden asked, his hand moving instinctively toward the emergency alert button. "No, sir, the signals appear to be entertainment? And information exchange? It is as if their entire population is constantly communicating with each other across the planet." Morden felt a chill run through his body. A species with planet-wide instant communication was far more advanced than the Council had assumed. "Move us closer. Stay at maximum stealth range, but I want detailed scans of their population." Centers. The peaceful observer crept closer to Earth, its cloaking systems hiding it from what they assumed would be primitive detection equipment. The crew watched in growing amazement as their sensors revealed the true scope of human civilization. "Captain," Zareth reported, her voice filled with awe, "their cities are enormous. Some contain millions of individuals living in close proximity. And they have built structures that reach incredible heights, despite the crushing gravity of their world." The view screen showed images of human cities at night, blazing with artificial light. Towering buildings reached toward the sky like crystal. Growths, rivers of light showed where humans moved through their settlements on vehicles that somehow functioned in the hostile environment. "Look at this," Engineer Kiklo called out. "They have built transportation systems that move individuals at speeds that would be lethal to most species. And they do it for routine daily travel." Morden studied the readings. Humans regularly traveled at velocities that would crush a council citizen's internal organs. They did it in flimsy metal containers, apparently without protective gear or life support systems. "Sir," Communications Officer Yelena said suddenly, "I am detecting orbital activity." The crew turned to look at her in shock. "Orbital activity?" Morden repeated. "Yes, sir. There are artificial objects in orbit around their world. Dozens of. They appear to be communication satellites? And some kind of monitoring stations?" Morden felt his confidence draining away. The mission briefing had mentioned primitive spacecraft, but active orbital infrastructure suggested a much more advanced civilization. "Are any of these objects manned?" Scanning now. "Yes, sir. I detect life signs aboard at least 3 of the orbital stations. Humans are living and working in space, despite having no apparent life support technology that we can identify." The captain's hands shook as he absorbed this information. Living in space required incredibly advanced technology. Even Council species needed elaborate environmental systems to survive outside their home worlds. Yet these humans seemed to manage it with equipment that looked primitive by galactic standards. "Captain," Zareth's voice was sharp with alarm, "I am detecting multiple objects launching from the planet's surface." The view screen shifted to show several bright points of light rising rapidly from Earth's surface. They moved with purpose and speed, following trajectories that would bring them close to the reconnaissance fleet's position. "Those cannot be aimed at us," Morden said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Our stealth systems are undetectable." "Sir," Engineer Kiklo called out, his voice tight with fear, "those objects are accelerating at rates that should kill any living occupant. Nothing could survive that level of gravitational force." The launching objects continued to climb, their paths clearly intended to intercept the alien fleet. Morden watched in growing horror as he realized the implications. "They can see us," he whispered. "Impossible," Zareth protested. "Our cloaking technology is the most advanced in the galaxy. No primitive species could possibly detect us at this range." "Then explain those missiles heading directly for our position," Morden snapped. Communications Officer Yelena looked up from her station, her skin pale with shock. "Captain, I am intercepting their communications. They are coordinating a military response to our presence. They call us ... unidentified aerial phenomena, and they have been tracking our approach for several minutes." The captain felt ice form in his veins. Not only could these humans detect advanced Council stealth technology, but they had been watching the alien fleet since it entered their detection range. Worse, they had immediately assumed hostile intent and prepared a military response. "What kind of weapons are those missiles carrying?" he asked. Engineer Kiklo studied his displays with growing alarm. "I cannot identify the warhead type, but the energy signatures are ... concerning. They appear to be some kind of controlled explosive device with massive destructive potential." "Sir," Yelena interrupted, "I am detecting additional launches from multiple locations across the planet. They are coordinating a planet-wide defensive response." Morden stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Red dots were appearing all across Earth's surface as humans launched defensive missiles from dozens of locations. This was not the response of a primitive species surprised by first contact. This was the reaction of a military force that had planned for exactly this scenario. How did they know to prepare for this? He wondered aloud. Communications Officer Yelena's translator unit struggled with the concepts as she intercepted more human transmissions. "Sir, they have extensive entertainment media that depicts scenarios exactly like our arrival. They call them alien invasion movies, and they have created hundreds of them. They have been preparing for contact with hostile aliens for decades. The approaching missiles were now close enough that their primitive but effective guidance systems had locked onto the alien vessels. Warning alarms filled the bridge as the fleet's defensive systems registered incoming threats. "All ships, emergency withdrawal," Morden ordered. "Maximum speed, retreat to safe distance." The Council reconnaissance fleet turned and fled, their advanced engines easily outpacing the human missiles. But the damage was done. The humans had detected them, prepared a coordinated military response, and forced the technologically superior aliens to retreat. As the fleet reached safe distance, Morden slumped in his command chair. The mission had been a complete disaster. Instead of observing primitive beings struggling to survive on a death world, they had encountered a species that not only thrived in impossible conditions, but had developed military capabilities specifically designed to repel alien visitors. "Prepare a full report for the Council," he ordered wearily. "Tell them we have discovered something unprecedented. These humans are not just survivors. They are warriors who have been preparing for galactic contact for decades." "Sir," Engineer Kiklo said quietly, "what if they decide to come looking for us?" Morden did not answer. The thought of Death World warriors with space travel capabilities was too terrifying to contemplate. The Council needed to know what they were dealing with, and they needed to know immediately. The humans had passed their first test of galactic contact. They had detected advanced alien technology, coordinated a military response, and successfully defended their world from unknown visitors. The question now was what they would do next. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened just 24 hours after Captain Morden's fleet returned from Earth. The Great Hall buzzed with anxious energy as representatives whispered among themselves. Never before had a reconnaissance mission ended in retreat from a supposedly primitive species. HFY stood at the central podium, her crystalline form darker than usual. The data streams from the failed mission played continuously on holographic displays around the chamber. The assembled aliens watched with growing unease as human missiles tracked their supposedly invisible ships with deadly precision. "The situation is far more complex than our initial assessment suggested," HFY announced, her voice carrying none of its usual musical quality. The humans detected our stealth technology immediately and responded with coordinated military action. Ambassador Quilton of the Floating Cities raised a tentacle. How is this possible? Our cloaking systems have never failed against any known species. That is the first of many disturbing discoveries, HFY replied. She gestured, and the display shifted to show intercepted human communications. They have been expecting us. Dr. Mirta, the Council's chief synapsichologist, floated forward in her mobility sphere. Her multiple brain cases pulsed with different colors as she processed the information. Please explain. HFY activated a new data stream. The display filled with images from human entertainment media, movies, television shows, books, and games. All of them depicted alien contact scenarios, most involving hostile invasion. They call it science fiction, HFY explained. 4. Over a century, humans have been creating entertainment based on the premise that aliens will eventually visit their world. More troubling, they consistently assume these aliens will be hostile. The assembled representatives stared in shock at the images: humans fighting tentacled creatures, human pilots battling alien spacecraft, human soldiers using primitive weapons against advanced alien technology and winning. This is impossible, whispered Senator Yuldek. How could they predict contact scenarios without any previous exposure to galactic civilization? Dr. Mirta S. Brain cases flashed rapidly as she analyzed the data. It appears to be a natural extension of their psychology. We need to understand what kind of beings we are dealing with. She activated her own presentation. The display now showed biological scans of human beings, tall bipedal creatures with forward-facing eyes and exposed teeth. Humans are pursuit predators, Dr. Mirta announced. Their eyes face forward for targeting prey. Their bodies are designed for persistence hunting, chasing prey until it collapses from exhaustion. But this is not the most disturbing aspect of their biology. The display zoomed in on human brain scans. They possess what they call an imagination, the ability to visualize scenarios that have never occurred and plan responses to hypothetical threats. This is why they created so much entertainment about alien contact. They have been mentally preparing for our arrival for generations. Ambassador Frexta of the underground colonies clicked her mandibles nervously. Surely their primitive technology limits their actual threat potential? HFY dimmed her internal light. I wish that were true. Analysis of their intercepted communications reveals technological capabilities that should not be possible for a Death World species. The display shifted to show human nuclear weapons tests. Mushroom clouds bloomed across the screen as primitive atomic devices released devastating amounts of energy. They have weaponized the fundamental forces of matter itself, HFY continued. They created these weapons shortly after discovering nuclear physics, then built thousands of them. They currently possess enough nuclear weapons to destroy their entire world multiple times over. The hall erupted in shocked gasps. Several representatives activated emergency breathing apparatus as the implications sank in. They would destroy their own world? Ambassador Cleason buzzed in disbelief. Not only would they, Dr. Mirta replied, they came very close to doing so on several occasions. Their history is filled with conflicts where they nearly triggered global nuclear war. Yet somehow, they always pulled back from total destruction at the last moment. She activated another display showing human military history. Battles raged across screens throughout the chamber. Humans fighting with primitive weapons, advanced technology, and everything in between. They are the most violent species we have ever encountered, Dr. Mirta continued. Their entire history is an unbroken chain of warfare. They fight over resources, territory, ideas, and religious beliefs. But here is the truly frightening part. They also fight for abstract concepts like freedom and justice, Senator Yuldek S. Breathing tubes wheezed with stress. What does that mean? It means they will die for ideas, Dr. Mirta explained. Most species fight for survival, territory, or resources. Humans will sacrifice their lives for concepts that exist only in their minds. They call this honor and consider it more valuable than life itself. The display showed human soldiers throughout history, warriors charging into battle knowing they would die, pilots crashing their aircraft into enemy targets, individuals standing against overwhelming odds for principles they believed in. But surely this violence makes them self-destructive? Ambassador Quilton asked hopefully. Zephyr's form flickered with uncertainty. That is what logic suggests. However, analysis of their social structures reveals something unprecedented. Despite their violent nature, they have developed something they call pack bonding. The display now showed humans working together, rescue workers saving strangers from disasters, soldiers risking their lives for comrades, entire communities organizing to help individuals they had never met. They form emotional attachments not just with their family groups, but with complete strangers, Zephyr explained. They adopt other species' offspring and care for them as their own. They domesticate predator animals and treat them as family members. Most remarkably, they will sacrifice themselves for individuals they have never met if those individuals belong to their pack. How large are these packs? Dr. Mirta asked. That is the terrifying part, Zephyr replied. Their pack bonding appears to be unlimited. They can extend it to their entire species, to abstract ideals, even to imaginary concepts. Some humans consider all life in the universe to be part of their pack. The implications hit the assembled representatives like a physical blow. A species that could pack bond with anything, that would die for strangers and abstract ideas, that had weaponized atomic energy while living on a death world. There is more, Zephyr continued relentlessly. Analysis of their recreational activities reveals psychological traits that explain their impossible survival capabilities. The display showed humans engaged in various sports and leisure activities. Rock climbing, deep-sea diving, skydiving, marathon running, extreme weather survival challenges. They engage in activities that would be considered torture by most galactic species, Zephyr explained. They call it fun. They deliberately expose themselves to life-threatening conditions for entertainment. They compete to see who can endure the most physical hardship. Images flashed across the screen of humans climbing mountains in freezing conditions, running for hours without stopping, diving to crushing depths in the ocean, jumping from aircraft with only primitive parachutes. Most disturbing of all, Dr. Mirta added, they have a psychological trait they call stubbornness when faced with impossible odds. Instead of retreating or surrendering, they become more determined to succeed. The worse the situation becomes, the harder they fight. Senator Yuldak's skin had turned completely white. Are you telling us they become more dangerous when threatened? Exactly, both scientists replied simultaneously. The hall fell silent. As the representatives absorbed this information, they had expected to find a primitive species struggling to survive on a hostile world. Instead, they had discovered persistence predators who considered their death world home, who had weaponized atomic energy, who would die for abstract concepts, and who became more dangerous when threatened. What is our recommendation? Asked the council speaker. Zephyr and Dr. Mirta exchanged glances. We need more information, Zephyr replied carefully. But based on current data, we may be dealing with the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever produced. They are coming, Dr. Mirta added quietly. Our scans detect active research into faster-than-light travel. Multiple human governments are working independently on space exploration technology. It is not a question of if they will reach the stars, but when. The council chamber erupted in panicked conversations. For the first time in galactic history, they faced the prospect of contact with a species that might be more dangerous than any current council member. The humans were coming, and nobody knew if the galaxy was ready for them. 3 weeks had passed since the emergency council session, and the intelligence reports kept getting worse. Deep space monitoring stations throughout the sector now focused their attention on the small blue world, intercepting every human transmission they could detect. What they discovered challenged everything the galactic community thought they knew about how intelligent species develop. Dr. Mirta floated in her laboratory aboard the Council's research station, surrounded by holographic displays showing human behavioral data. Her multiple brain cases pulsed with different colors as she struggled to process information that defied all known psychological models. "This cannot be correct," she muttered to herself for the 100th time that day. Her assistant, a young researcher named Veltar, approached cautiously. "Doctor, the new data streams from their global communication network have been processed. You are not going to like what we found." Dr. Mirta rotated her mobility sphere to face him. "Show me." The display filled with intercepted human internet communications, social media posts, news articles, scientific papers, and personal messages flowed across the screen in an endless stream of data. "They share information freely," Veltar explained, "not just within their family groups or local communities, but with their entire species. Any human with access to their communication network can learn almost anything known by their civilization." Dr. Mirta's brain cases flickered with confusion. "That makes no strategic sense. Information is power. Why would they give it away?" "It gets worse, Doctor. Watch this." Veltar activated a new data stream showing human educational systems. They actively teach their offspring everything they know. Not just survival skills or trade knowledge, but advanced mathematics, science, history, philosophy, and creative arts. They want every member of their species to be as intelligent and capable as possible. "But that would create competition for resources," Dr. Mirta protested. "Most species limit education to maintain social hierarchy. Humans appear to have reached the conclusion that making everyone smarter makes their entire species more successful," Veltar replied. "They call it education, and they consider it a fundamental right of every individual." Dr. Mirta processed this information with growing alarm. A species that actively tried to maximize the intelligence and capabilities of every member was unprecedented. Most civilizations depended on rigid social structures to maintain order. "Show me their response to natural disasters," she ordered. The display shifted to show human responses to earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, and volcanic eruptions. Instead of fleeing or accepting casualties, humans mobilized massive rescue operations. Strangers risked their lives to save people they had never met. Entire communities rebuilt destroyed areas stronger than before. "They do not accept loss of life as inevitable," Veltar observed. "When natural forces threaten them, they fight back. When their infrastructure is destroyed, they rebuild it better. When diseases kill their people, they develop medical treatments to prevent future deaths. That level of species cooperation should be impossible for persistence predators," Dr. Mirta said weakly. "Doctor, there is something else. Something that makes even less sense." Veltar activated another display. "They have been deliberately making other worlds more suitable for life." The screen showed human terraforming projects, atmospheric processors, orbital mirrors, and planetary engineering on a massive scale. But instead of making worlds more like the Council's carefully controlled environments, humans were making them more like Earth. They are spreading their death world conditions to other planets, Dr. Mirta realized with horror. "Yes, Doctor, and they are not just doing it for themselves. Analysis of their long-term planning documents shows they intend to share these worlds with other species. They want to create environments where multiple forms of life can coexist." Dr. Mirta's mobility sphere shook as her brain cases flashed in rapid sequence. "They want to pact bond with species they have never met? It appears so. They have extensive plans for peaceful contact with alien civilizations. They assume we will become friends and work together for mutual benefit." The doctor floated in stunned silence. Everything about human psychology contradicted itself. They were violent predators who valued peace. They were competitive individuals who worked together for species success. They were survivors from a death world who wanted to help others thrive. "Doctor," Veltar said hesitantly, "there is one more thing." The most disturbing discovery of all. I am not sure I can handle any more disturbing discoveries, Dr. Mirta replied. We have been monitoring their entertainment media to understand their psychological profiles. But we found something in their historical records that changes everything. The display showed images from human history, archaeological sites, ancient ruins, and extinction event evidence. They have survived multiple extinction-level events on their world, Veltar explained. Massive volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, ice ages, and supervolcanic explosions. Events that would have wiped out any other known species. How is that possible? Each time their world tried to kill them, they adapted and became stronger. The asteroid impact that created their moon, they survived. The ice age that covered most of their world in frozen wasteland, they developed new technologies and expanded into previously uninhabitable regions. The supervolcanic eruption that blocked out their sun for years, they learned to grow food without sunlight. Dr. Mirta stared at the data in disbelief. They have been tested by their own world repeatedly and passed every test. Yes, Doctor. But here is the truly frightening part. Each extinction event made them more cooperative, not less. Facing species death brought them together instead of driving them apart. They learned that survival required working together, so they built stronger social bonds. The implications were staggering. Most species became more selfish and violent when faced with extinction. Humans had become more cooperative and caring. They had literally been forged by catastrophe into something unprecedented. Show me their current extinction threats, Dr. Mirta ordered, the display filled with human environmental data. Climate change, pollution, resource depletion, and ecological collapse threaten their world. They are facing another potential extinction event. Right now, Veltar explained. But instead of panic or despair, they are coordinating a global response. They are developing new technologies, changing their industrial systems, and working together to prevent catastrophe. Are they succeeding? Early indicators suggest yes. They are actually reversing some of the environmental damage and developing sustainable systems that could support their population indefinitely. Dr. Mirta's brain cases pulsed with colors that indicated complete cognitive overload. So they are currently preventing their own extinction while simultaneously developing interstellar travel capabilities? That is correct, Doctor. And they assume that when they meet alien species, we will all become friends and work together? Their cultural and scientific literature suggests they expect galactic civilization to be peaceful and cooperative. Veltar confirmed. Dr. Mirta floated in silence for several minutes, processing the impossible data. Finally, she activated her communication system to contact the council leadership. Council speaker, this is Dr. Mirta. I need to schedule another emergency session immediately. What have you discovered, Doctor? We have been asking the wrong question, she replied. We assumed these humans were dangerous because they come from a death world. The truth is far worse, explain. They are not dangerous because they survived impossible conditions. They are dangerous because impossible conditions made them better. They are persistence predators who have learned to cooperate on a species level. They are warriors who prefer peace. They are individuals who will sacrifice themselves for strangers. They are the product of multiple extinction events that taught them survival requires helping everyone survive. Doctor, you are not making sense. Council Speaker, we are not dealing with a typical aggressive species that we can negotiate with or contain. We are dealing with a species that has been tested by catastrophe repeatedly and emerged stronger every time. They expect to meet us as friends. But if we threaten them, they will respond with the same determination that allowed them to survive asteroid impacts and ice ages. What is your recommendation? Dr. Mirta looked at the data stream showing human space programs, their terraforming projects, and their plans for peaceful galactic contact. They are coming to the stars whether we invite them or not, she said finally. Our choice is simple. We can meet them as friends, or we can face them as the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever produced. Given their history, I strongly Recommend we choose friendship. The communication ended, leaving Dr. Mirta alone with her data and her fears. The humans were impossible, violent pacifists, competitive cooperators, death world survivors who wanted to help everyone thrive. They defied every model of species development the Council possessed, and they would be among the stars soon, ready or not. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen such chaos. For 48 hours, representatives from every member world had debated without reaching consensus. The question before them was simple: what should they do about humanity? The answer, however, was anything but simple. Council Speaker Zintari stood at the central podium, his ancient form showing signs of strain. In 3 centuries of leadership, he had never faced a decision with such far-reaching consequences. The holographic displays around the chamber showed the latest: intelligence from Earth, and the news was getting worse by the hour. "Order, order," he called, his voice amplified throughout the hall. "We must reach a decision. The situation is developing rapidly." Ambassador Quilton of the Floating Cities waved his tentacles frantically. "The latest reports show they have achieved faster-than-light communication." "How is that possible?" "Our species needed millennia to develop such technology." Dr. Mirta floated forward in her mobility sphere, her brain cases flickering with exhaustion. "They are not following normal technological development patterns," she explained. "Instead of advancing slowly through established scientific principles, they are making intuitive leaps that bypass centuries of research." "Show them the quantum entanglement data," ordered Council Speaker Zinthari, the display filled with intercepted human scientific communications. Research papers, experimental data, and theoretical frameworks streamed past in an endless flow of information. "They have multiple research teams working independently on the same problems," Dr. Mirta continued. "When one team makes a breakthrough, they immediately share it with all other teams. Instead of competing for advantage, they cooperate to accelerate discovery." Senator Yuldak's breathing tubes wheezed with stress. "But that makes no strategic sense." "Why would they give away technological advantages?" "Because they have reached a conclusion that terrifies me," Dr. Mirta replied. "They believe that advancing their entire species' capabilities is more important than individual or national advantage. They want everyone to be as successful as possible." Ambassador Hreksta of the underground colonies clicked her mandibles nervously. "What is our timeline? How long before they achieve interstellar travel?" HFY materialized beside Dr. Mirta, her crystalline form dimmer than usual. "Based on current progress rates, they will have functional, faster-than-light drive within 2 standard years. Multiple human organizations are working on different approaches simultaneously." 2 years? Gasped Ambassador Cleason of the Hive Worlds. "That is impossible. No species develops FTL technology that quickly." "Humans are not following conventional development patterns," HFY replied. "They are not limited by traditional thinking. When they encounter a problem, they try dozens of different solutions simultaneously. When one approach shows promise, they immediately focus all available resources on perfecting it." Council Speaker Zinthari activated a new display showing human space exploration projects. Multiple rockets, space stations, and lunar colonies appeared on screen. "They have already established permanent settlements beyond their homeworld," he announced. "These settlements are not just research outposts. They are self-sustaining colonies with families, children, and complete industrial infrastructure." The assembled representatives stared in shock at images of human children playing in lunar playgrounds, of families living in orbital habitats, of industrial facilities producing goods in the vacuum of space. "They are spreading," whispered Senator Yuldak. "They are making their entire star system habitable." "More than that," HFY added. "They are preparing for expansion beyond their star system. Analysis of their long-term planning documents shows they intend to establish colonies throughout this entire sector of the galaxy." The hall erupted in panicked conversations. The idea of Death World survivors spreading throughout the galaxy was terrifying enough, but humans appeared to be doing it with unprecedented speed and efficiency. What are our options? Demanded Ambassador Quilt and Council Speaker Zinthari. Dimmed the lights and activated a strategic analysis display. 3 options appeared in large holographic text. Option 1. Immediate military intervention. We mobilize the combined fleets of all Council worlds and establish a containment perimeter around the human star system. The representatives considered this option in tense silence. Military action against an unknown species was unprecedented in Council history. Option 2. Diplomatic contact. We approach the humans openly and attempt to negotiate their integration into galactic civilization under Council oversight. Option 3. Withdrawal. We classify their sector as a restricted zone and forbid all Council species from entering human space. Ambassador Rexter raised an objection immediately. Option 3 is not viable. If they achieve FTL travel, they will expand into Council space whether we permit it or not. We cannot avoid contact indefinitely. Option 1 presents significant risks, added Dr. Mirta. Military action against humans might trigger the same response that forced Captain Morden's fleet to retreat. If they consider us hostile, they will respond with the same determination that allowed them to survive extinction events. That leaves option 2, said Senator Yuldek. But how do we negotiate with a species that thinks so differently from any known civilization? HFY activated a new display showing human diplomatic history. Analysis of their international relations suggests they are capable of complex negotiations and long-term agreements. However, they respond very badly to threats or attempts at domination. What do you mean? Asked Council Speaker Zinthari. Their history shows that when threatened with conquest or control, humans become exponentially more dangerous. They will sacrifice everything to maintain their independence. But when approached as equals with mutual respect, they are surprisingly cooperative and generous. Dr. Mirta's brain cases pulsed with new insight. They want to be friends with everyone they meet. But if someone tries to control them, they become the most dangerous enemies imaginable. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The Council had always maintained order through careful hierarchy and controlled development. Humans appeared to reject hierarchy entirely while developing faster than any species in galactic history. There is one more factor to consider, announced a new voice. The assembled representatives turned to see Admiral Keksha of the Defense Forces approaching the podium. Her armored form moved with predatory grace as she activated her own intelligence display. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual activity in human space, she announced. They are not just developing FTL technology. They are building something massive. The display showed long-range sensor data from the edge of human space. Enormous construction projects orbited their outer planets, structures too large and complex for their current technology to explain. What are they building? Asked Council Speaker Zinthari. Based on the energy signatures and material composition, they appear to be constructing generation ships, Admiral Keksha replied. Vessels designed to carry entire populations on interstellar journeys lasting centuries. The hall fell completely silent. Generation ships represented a level of commitment and planning that few species ever achieved. They required societies willing to sacrifice for goals they would never live to see. But if they are developing FTL technology, why would they need generation ships? Wondered Ambassador Quilton. Because they are planning for every possibility, Dr. Mirta realized with growing horror. If their FTL experiments fail, they will still reach the stars through slow travel. If their worlds are threatened, they can evacuate entire populations. If they encounter hostile aliens, they can scatter their species across the galaxy faster than anyone can stop them. Admiral Keksha nodded grimly. They are not just developing space travel, they are ensuring their species' survival regardless of any obstacle they might encounter, including us. Council Speaker Zinthari looked around the hall at the frightened faces of galactic civilization's leadership. For the first time in Council history, they faced a species that might be more adaptable, more determined, and more dangerous than any of them. We have reached decision time, he announced. Based on all available evidence, humans will achieve interstellar capability within 2 years. They are already spreading throughout their star system and building infrastructure for galactic expansion. We cannot stop them, contain them, or avoid them. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Our choice is simple. We can meet them as equals and hope to guide their integration into galactic civilization. Or we can attempt to oppose them and face the consequences of threatening a species that has survived multiple extinction events through sheer determination and cooperation. The vote was closer than anyone expected, but the outcome was inevitable. By the narrowest margin in Council history, the representatives chose diplomacy over conflict. Prepare first contact protocols, Council Speaker Zinthari ordered. We will approach the humans openly and offer them membership in galactic civilization, and if they refuse? Asked Admiral KEX single quotes Shaw. The ancient leader looked at the displays, showing human space projects, their technological advancement, and their species-wide cooperation in the face of challenges.